So I've been sent this battery tester by TOPDON to give it an independent review and see what I think of it.
But rather than test it just on one car, I thought we'd give it a go on all three cars. I know the battery in the Alfa's good because we only put it in there last year. The battery on the Land Rover, I'm sure is on the way out. It's the original and it's about 8 years old now. Battery on the Clio, I've got no idea. So let's get them connected and we'll give them a test and see what we find. So it's perfect timing for testing the batteries at the minute. It's really cold. We're putting a lot of draw on the cars. You know, we've got the back windows on, the front windows on. We're using a lot of electricity and so on, and the batteries don't like the cold weather. So hopefully we'll give this a go. It's got multiple tests that it's meant to be able to do, so we can test the battery health itself, the cranking test and the charging test. So let's get it hooked up to the first car. We'll go with the Alfa and we'll see how it performs. So when you first open the pack, you get inside it a quick start guide. So in here it runs through all about how to set up the tester, some of the parameters that you need to load in, which is really quite important because it tells you or it asks you about what battery type it is, if it's AGM or if it's a gel or whatever it might be, but then also the values, the ratings and what type of battery as well on top of that, CCA, BCI and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to run through, get the actual leads onto the battery and then we'll have a look and try and video exactly what the options are. So starting here on the Alfa, all I've done is just connected up the terminals, positive and negative. Straight away on the screen we're getting a reading 12.28, so it's telling us what the voltage of the battery is currently. So we just click OK to that. Then we get 5 options: battery test, cranking test, charging test, review data and language. So we're going to go for the first one, battery test. We'll just hit OK to that. Type is, this is an EFB battery. It's got the stop start, so we'll OK that. Hopefully you can see that on screen okay. Cold cranking ampage, so we're going to select that and we're going to put this as 700 amps, which is what this battery is rated at. We'll OK that. It's now going to run the test, as you can see hopefully on the screen now. It's coming through and it's telling us that it is 0% healthy and telling us to replace. So I'm not too sure about that. That's not particularly wonderful for me. Doing exactly the same test, but just by removing that and putting it back on, made it go from 0% up to what we've got on there now, 28%. So I'm guessing it's really critical to make sure that you've got a really good connection both on the positive and negative terminals, because it's going to affect and impact your reading. So I'm interested to see whether or not that will have an impact on that when we come to do that. And we can see that it's saying health is 33%, so that's really low. Charge is only at 58%, and it's actually telling us to replace it. So that's quite interesting because, like I say, I know it's a new battery, it's less than a year old. So I'm now going to come out of that and we're going to go down to cranking test. We'll click OK, and it's telling us to start the engine. So I'll see if I can pop this here so you can see it, and I'll go and start the engine. Okay, so I think you might have seen then, just as we started testing the engine, it picked up and it ran its own test, and it's telling us that the cranking is low, dropping down to 8.33 volts. So we'll just come out of that. And then the next one is the charging test. So we'll go down to that, click OK. Initially, it does this little test. And then it puts a load on the battery. Takes about 3 seconds or so, and then it tells us to increase the revs. So I'm just going to build the revs up now. Okay, I was expecting it to pick something up there. We'll press enter. Okay, and it's saying charging normal, so I'm not too sure the order of process of that. When you actually read the instructions, it tells you to do it in that order. So once you've gone into it, build up the revs and then press enter, which is exactly what it says on screen. So I'm a little bit dubious as to which order to go in. So whether or not you press enter first and then actually build the revs up, but you wouldn't have enough time to get back into it to push it. So reading the instructions, like I say, that's the way that it says to do it. So we'll take that as a test. We'll come back out of there, go down to review the data, hit OK, and it's telling us that basically we need to replace this battery, which, like I say, I know is not correct because it's a new battery, but I think I know why. So even if it's diagnosed that the battery is faulty when we know it's not, at least it has diagnosed that there is a fault somewhere. So that's really useful. Okay, so this battery, I'm convinced, is actually in need of replacement. You can see just about, it says on there, Jaguar Land Rover. So like I say, the car's about 8 years old, or 7.5 years, something like that. I did do a video previously about testing this and check the voltage of it. It was consistently low. It's always telling me to start the car as well. So let's get this hooked up. Okay, straight away we can see that we are at 12.07 volts, so even lower than the Alfa, and to be fair, that's higher than I thought it was going to be. So we just okay that, and let's do a battery test. We can see straight away on this one that it's at AGM and 850 amp. We can see from the label here. So we'll just go in, press OK on the battery test, and we'll come down to the flat plate. I believe it's the AGM flat plate. Okay that. CCA, I'm sure it's the CCA, and increase that to 850. There we go, 850. Hit OK. It's now testing the battery. And we've got health 45%. It's holding 575 of those amps. It's a good charge. And it's actually saying it's good, but it just needs recharging. So that's pretty useful for me, hopefully, because it might mean that I don't need to invest in a new battery. So we'll just OK that, or we'll come back out. Now we need to do a cranking test. So we'll click OK to that, and it says start engine. So I'm going to leave the tester here. Hopefully we'll be able to, or you'll be able to see that. So hopefully you can hear me on this one this time. RPM detected. It does a test automatically once it's picked up that the car's started. Okay, and the results of that test are that it says cranking is normal. It dropped down to 10.37, which is actually okay. That's really interesting, because actually when I got into the car to start it up just now, I had the error on the dashboard telling me to please start engine because the battery is low. So let's come out of this one, and the next one we'll do the charging test. Just clicking on that. It's just running through, doing its own loading. Okay, now it's telling us to, or asking us to up the revs to 2,500 RPM. So I'm going to go do that now. Okay, I'm going to press enter to continue. Okay, and again it says charging normal. So I'll come out of that and we'll just review the data again. And from here we can see that it says basically the battery is healthy, but it just needs a recharge. So over at the Clio, we can see we've got 12.42, which is good. So I'm just going to OK that. We'll do a battery test, OK that. And I'm not too sure which battery type this is. It's not a stop-start engine or anything like that. So I'm going to go for a regular flooded. CC8 cold cranking amps are, and it is a lot lower. We are down at, like I say, this one says 640 on the battery. So we'll just go down to 640, which is what the battery is meant to be. There we go. We'll OK that. That's now testing, as you can see there, hopefully. And it says 83% and a good battery. So that's exactly what we're expecting. So I'm really pleased with that. So we just come out of that and we'll do a cranking test now. So just OK that. So it says start engine. So let's go and do that. I'll just see if I can pop the tester in here. Okay, obviously the engine's running now, RPM detected, so we can see that it's doing its automatic test, and we had down to 11.54, so that's really good. So cranking is normal, exactly as it says there. So we can come out of that, and now we can go and do the charging test. We'll just click OK to that. It does its first initial ripple test. I'm guessing the loading test is where it puts the load on the car itself. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to increase it to 2,500 RPM. Okay, and once again we can see that the charging is high, so that's really good. So that's telling us that this battery is okay. So we'll just come out of that. I'll turn the engine off and then we can review the data. Okay, so looking at the results of that, let's have a look. We're going to go into review data, just click OK on that, and we can see that we've got a healthy 83% of charge. Charge is normal, internal is good, and everything is fine. So it's a good battery. It's telling us that this is okay and there's no issues with that at all. Okay, there we go. Well, some surprising results. So the battery that I thought was good, or that I know is good, was telling us to replace. The battery that I thought was defunct, shall we say, is telling us that it's a good battery, it just needs charging. And the battery that we knew nothing about is telling us that it's a perfectly good battery, it's well healthy. So what I think we can take from that is how important it is to make sure that your battery terminals are clean. Because as we see, from plugging these on, although they've got these extra bits on there which really kind of clamp on very well, plugging it onto that, at one point it gave us a reading of 0% health. Moving them around, just kind of trying to scratch them up and get a bit of dirt off, went up to 31% health. So some real variance on that. So what I think we'll do, I'll give it a go another day. We'll clean up them terminals, get some really good adhesion to it, or some really good contact, shall we say, not adhesion, and make sure that everything is good, and then we'll plug it back on. We'll see what reading we get with it then, and then yeah, we'll see how accurate or how consistent the output is of this. For the Disco, I guess I'm just going to need to go on a long drive and charge it up. And for the Clio, you might have noticed that when we did the cranking test, obviously we hit enter first and then we built up the revs. So like I say, I'm not entirely sure which order it's meant to be done in, but overly I don't think it matters too much. It's told us it's a good battery anyway, so I'm really happy with that car. So in summary then, great little tester. It's given us some really good results and obviously identified a problem that I need to resolve on this one. So definitely a really good bit of kit, really handy, and I'm really glad that I've got it in my toolbox now. So if you've got a problem with your battery, or you think you've got a problem with your battery and you want a battery tester, I'd definitely recommend this one because it seems to do everything that it needs to. So hopefully that's been useful. If you've enjoyed it, give us a like down below. If you haven't done so already, remember to hit subscribe coming up here now. Really appreciate your time for watching. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.